Hey everybody, this is Eric Enge. This is the Digital Marketing Excellence Show. I'm here today as always, well actually not as always, but today with my co-host is Mark Traphagen. He's always my co-host on the DMA show, except for once. And our special guest for the day, Rand Fishkin. Say hi, Rand.
How's it going?
That wasn't exactly what I told you to say, but it will have to do.
Hi, Rand.
Thank you. I understand it's a special day, and we made special overlays for you.
Oh, brother!
Happy
yes.
birthday! We can't sing. We can't sing the official song because we'll get sued by somebody. But
Yes.
happy birthday to you,
Oh,
sir.
brother. Yeah.
Yes,
well,
indeed.
thank you very much, guys.
So everybody out there in the comments, I want to see a whole stream of happy birthday wishes for.
That's
for
totally
Rand.
not necessary.
Start going out to Twitter. Let's flood the world and make sure that no other news gets out today.
And you all out there should aspire to do as much by 30 as Rand has done by 30.
There you go. And if you're over 30, well, you've got problems. But anyway, I guess that's where Mark and I are in all of this. So, but anyway, hopefully it's a great day for you, Rand. So I do mean that sincerely.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we are going to talk about content marketing today, and gosh, this topic is all the rage and has been for some time now, and it's not like slowing down, and there's so many different discussions that people are having about this, and all this advice flowing this way and that, and the reality is that a lot of people try it and it doesn't work for them, and then there are other people who really kind of nail it, and they get it going and get it working, and they get a lot of things really going for them. And we're going to try to sort out the why and why not parts of that, and hopefully we'll be able to share some wisdom about what kind of makes it fall apart and what makes it roar. So how's that sound for an agenda?
I love it.
Awesome. So, Rand, we were both out at the, really, I thought, the fantastic MN search in Minneapolis. It was a conference out there. I'm sorry?
They did a stellar job.
They absolutely did a stellar job. And your presentation, your keynote, was actually a good lead into this whole topic. You were actually addressing some of the ways that content marketing ends up failing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've seen time and time again. And the interesting thing for me, and I'm sure you guys and many of you who've been watching, or who are watching, who've been doing SEO for a long time, sort of look at content marketing as like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't new. This is how we've been doing a lot of forms of what's been called classic SEO for a decade plus, almost two. The idea of producing a piece of content that people will love, that search engines will also love, that lots of people will share and link to, that can earn rankings and then have a consistent ongoing flywheel effect, right? This, what's now called content marketing, has long been sort of in the SEO world, but it is, I think there's new implications from the new platforms and the new ways that people are consuming and using the web, and some of those are our addiction, of course, to our mobile devices, and our new addiction to social platforms and social sharing, which means that there's a far larger group of people who can potentially amplify and share content in more public ways and then consume it. Now, where I've seen a big challenge from this is marketers of all kinds who invest in content marketing with wrong preconceptions about how the process is going to work and what content marketing is supposed to do for them. And one of the big myths that I talked about at that MN Search event, kind of the lead-in, was that there's this belief in the greatest lie that content marketing ever told the world, and that is, you make something, you write a blog post, you publish it, people come to that blog post, and then suddenly they're going to sign up for your email newsletter, follow you on your social accounts, buy from you, contact you immediately, and use your services, right? And this is completely false. It's just not how content marketing has ever worked, nor do I think it's how content marketing will ever work. A great piece of content, even one that is eminently shareable and consumable, has a very different goal and purpose than a landing page that's trying to convert someone. And folks who conflate and confuse those two journeys to a website as being one thing are going to fail at both of them, right? Because I don't think you can serve both of those audiences successfully and well, at least not 99% of the time, maybe 1% of the time, the rare outlier you can do it. So that's kind of a big myth, I think a big failure, and a really dangerous precedent to set. So you go pitch a client, or you go tell your team or your CEO that this is how content marketing is going to work. Hey, we're going to launch a blog. You give me a writer and a designer, and we're going to produce something 5 days a week, and our conversions are going to go up. You are fooling yourself, right? And you're fooling your team. And of course, people are going to invest in that for a month or 2 or 3, and then they're going to stop.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, the blog posts just don't convert. And it's kind of a related thing, which I always advise people on too. It's like, okay, help me keyword optimize my blog post. And it's like, well, okay, that starts from that misconception that you're going to get someone in on your money term and have them convert. And now your blog post is optimized for a keyword and competing with your real money page. And the blog post is getting all the links. Oh, horrors, your blog post actually starts out ranking your money page and your revenue goes down.
Yeah. Well, so, let's try and think about this. I like using very specific examples for this kind of thing because I feel like it helps. So whenever I have a conversation with someone, I say, tell me about your website. Tell me about the kinds of content you might produce. And, for folks who are watching this today, Mark and Eric, like you guys have, especially through Google Plus and through sharing on Twitter and other social networks, built something of a following. It feels to me especially strong in the last 12 to 18 months, right? And I think you've been investing pretty darn hard in it, starting sometime in the last 18 months, maybe a couple of years ago, and have now acquired sort of a reputation for expertise in these specific fields. You've produced and shared content, not just your own content, but tons of content from around the industry, on a regular basis with a heavy research background and a very accessible feel to them. And as a result, I have never bought anything from either of you.
Well, thank you.
I'm sorry to say that, right? Like I feel kind of guilty and bad. I've been consuming your content for years, loving it, sharing it, repurposing it, linking to it, citing it, and never spent a dime with you.
Well, you haven't gotten to the part of the hangout where we do our pitch to you. I mean, that's why we really have you here. So just hang in there. We'll get there.
Is
this the bill?
Yeah. There you go. So that's by the end of the show. It's okay. But the reality is, I began really content marketing when it was just me and a small number of people here back in 2007. Yeah. But and I've told people many different times, I started writing blog posts, and in the first 2 years,
content marketing when you started doing it.
Yeah, well, no, the first 6 blog posts I wrote were the best blog posts I wrote in the first 2 years. Nobody ever read them. I actually had someone go back and refer to one of them. This happened like 3 months ago. They cited one of the first blog posts I ever wrote. It's like, what the? How do you even find it? But to me, there's so many things that interact. You talked about social media, but to me, when I think about content marketing, an important part of what made up content marketing for Stone Temple Consulting was going and speaking at conferences.
Sure.
And the reason why I include that is obviously it's an opportunity to present, show a presentation. Well, that's content. It's an opportunity to get in front of an audience and get people interested in reading your stuff. So I think all those things are interlinked. And
my question, right, would be, until and unless you had produced all of that web content, how would you have gotten an invitation to those events? How could you have proved to those organizers that you knew what you were talking about and had a reputation, could bring an audience with you, right? Because event organizers, they don't just want, oh yeah, this guy pitched and his pitch sounds interesting. That will get you nowhere, right? You want a name that you recognize. You want a brand that you might recognize, and you want someone who you can prove to yourself, to your audience, to the rest of your event coordination team, hey, this person's going to help us make this event
as Alessandro says in the comments here, it's part of the buyer's journey. That's where you have to see it. You're already beginning to position it that way. That it's a journey we're going on that's going to lead to connecting with the people who are our prospects and customers, and getting us in the right position where our pitch, to put it bluntly, will be meaningful to them. We'll have some relevance to them.
But Mark, I think this question displays another of those big myths, which is I do think that a blog post can be a great start to a buyer's journey, but I think many blog posts shouldn't be targeted at the start of a buyer's journey. They should also be targeted to an audience bigger than buyers and potential buyers, right? So the example we're talking about right now is a perfect one. Eric was creating content with the hope of people who organized events inviting him to events, which would then potentially lead to getting in front of people who might become clients or refer clients. And so that content is very different from the content you might put it directly in front of buyers. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And you have to be, I think a great content strategy comes from a place of deep empathy for the entire journey and the whole ecosystem of not just your buyers, but what and who might influence buyers. And that can be very different from the converting buyer themselves.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Rather than thinking of it as the individual buyer's journey, like I'm gonna draw in this one person with this content, and then I'm gonna snag them and get them in my net, and draw them in like the spider to the fly. Rather, it's a more general journey that we're on. It's a journey, as you were saying earlier, that all three of us have worked hard at that for years, to build reputation, to build authority, to build trust in people. That puts us in a position, puts you in the right place, the right time when that buyer is looking for who should I trust, who should I give my business to.
Yep.
That's really the bigger journey, isn't it?
And it's very interesting because we're in an industry where my experience has been that the vast majority of great customers for consultants in the web marketing field come through referrals. They don't come through SEO or a direct visit, right? They don't go, wow, this person seems really, really smart about Google Plus, and I've been thinking about investing more in Google Plus, so I'm going to hire them. It's this person's smart about Google Plus. Hey, I'm going to reach out to someone in my network that I know, or another business that's doing a great job, and I'm going to ask them, hey, who do you use? Do you like these folks? Who would you recommend? And so we need to build, I say we, but I don't actually do consulting, but folks who do consulting need to build those connections and relationships with the influencers, the people who might influence that buyer more directly. And then there are, the flip side of this is and Eric, I showed this in my slide deck, is the folks where it applies more directly. So Beard Brand was the example that I used in my slide deck, right? And Eric from Beard Brand, Mark, you're failing us all here with.
But I'm a prospect. I'm a prospect.
Well, I guess eventually you might be a prospect.
It would take a long time.
But so Beard Brand is very interesting in that the content that they produce is directly relevant to both their audience, right? People who are a community of folks passionate about facial hair and how mustaches and beards look, and grooming, male grooming, and that kind of stuff. And they can reach influencers and prospects with the same content. And that was what happened in my case, right? I heard about Beard Brand through an article about interesting consumer marketing. I went to their website, I found their blog, I ended up following them on Google+, and I probably had 7 or 8 touches before. As my current mustache was growing out, I ended up buying some mustache wax from them, right? And my final journey was just to search for terms that I remembered associated with their brand, because I couldn't remember their actual brand name in Google. And so if they were to be able to track my, that purchase journey, it would look like content marketing had nothing to do with it. It would look like I did a branded search, came to their homepage and bought something. How could they ever connect that to the video they put on Google Plus that I saw 3 months earlier, or their Tumblr blog that I saw 3 months before that? And so content is a very serendipitous investment. It's and a very hard to measure one, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, there used to be an old marketing saying when the world was print, TV, and radio, that on average it was 7 impressions to a sale. And that was consumer-oriented logic, right? That you would see the name on the billboard while you're driving to work. You might not even have looked at it, but it kind of subliminally hit you, and then the TV commercial would play for you later that night, and then 4 days later you'd hear the company's name on the radio, and then over time it sort of built up enough that you started to have an inclination to do something with it. And in the content marketing world, it's really kind of similar. It's you're really creating a lot of impressions. And by the way, it ties into another old marketing saying, which is the one where I forget what executive said this, but it was 50% of my marketing spend is wasted. Trouble is, I don't know which 50%.
I think it was originally attributed to Coca-Cola.
Yeah, and so that message, you're like building reputation and you're doing stuff and visibility, all over the place, and the payoff will come in some random way. And we've used the consulting business example, where obviously this all applies to a lot more than consulting businesses, but it happens all the time that when we check with people who call in here how they heard of us, it's like, well, I saw you presenting at a conference, and then I saw, Mark Traphagen wrote something, and didn't dawn on me first. It's, oh shoot, he's with Stone Temple too, and I seem to remember this Eric Enge fellow, and then they bump into someone else who recommends that they read The Art of SEO, and there's like several things involved that you could never predict. That really led to that turning into a real lead, and you just don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think one of the other big important myths to tackle around this is that a certain kind of either buyer targeted or just raw good enough content in your niche, right? So whether that's Eric from Beard Brand producing, just a phenomenal video about how to do beard grooming, or whether it's Mark creating something on Google Plus and authorship, or if it's me creating a presentation, or if it's a software company, say Yesware, right, doing something to promote email marketing. That somehow, if you achieve this golden mythical bar of good enough content, that it will sail across the web and become successful content marketing, right? Then you've done a great job. Distilled had a really good example today, right? They had been doing some work for I can't remember exactly the brand. I'll look it up real quick. But they had produced a piece that was looking at the musical ranges, vocal ranges of singers, and one of the individuals noted as having the highest singing voice range was Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses. And Axl Rose, actually, the piece did so well that Axl Rose himself ended up commenting on it, right? So like the vocal ranges of the world's greatest singers is the piece, and they had done it for concert hotels, right? So concert hotels was Distilled's client in this. They had produced this piece. It did phenomenally well. It was also right around the time of the Emmys, which was an intentional piece of timing. They knew a lot of press and media would pick it up. And this single piece of content did phenomenally well, right? Millions of visits, just a ton of attention. And I think Distilled did wonderful work, very impressive. But that piece is actually an example of the mythology of how content marketing works, not the reality, right? That having one piece that goes viral, that's like a huge hit, is the way to do content marketing. And what you're always after when you're producing content marketing. when in fact what's much more accurate is to describe it the way you just did, Eric, and that is many touches over a long period to the right audience from lots of different angles, right, across many mediums. It can't just be one great.
It's a long-term strategy. You've got to look at it right that way as a long-term strategy. It's planting seeds today that may not reap a harvest for a year, 2 years, whatever down the road, but you've got to be planting those seeds constantly, or you'll never have the harvest. To make a biblical allusion here.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, Mark. Right. So if I'm Concert Hotels and I'm working with Distilled, what I say is, you guys, this was phenomenal. So a great piece of work, but it is only the beginning, right? It's only one small step in the process. No one, virtually no one, is going to go to the vocal ranges of the world's greatest singers and say, you know what, I have 6 trips coming up in the next 12 weeks. I'm going to start booking hotels at Concert Hotels because I just really enjoyed this piece. That's not what's going to happen, right? Yeah. What's going to happen is this piece is going to rank well. Concert Hotels will now be a brand. I had never heard of them until I saw this piece, actually, right? And over the course of the next 12 months, a year, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, if I hear Concert Hotels 5, 6, 7, 8 more times, I'll start to build a brand association around them. I'll be like, oh yeah, they did that like cool piece here, and I'll get a sense for what their brand is like. And when I'm selecting hotels, next time I'm on Kayak or Expedia and I'm going to London, I might look and say, oh, this one's 20 pounds more a night, but I have a positive brand association with them. I've heard of them. I know them. I trust them. I like their brand. I'm going to stay there, right? And that's what Concert Hotels has to be looking for in content marketing.
Yeah, and they might they still have to deliver when you get there too. You can't forget that, right? But so a couple of comments I want to acknowledge. I'm going to go back a little ways. First of all, this one from Ammon Johns. So Ammon, don't disagree with you that a landing page is a form of a content marketing, but of course we're meaning here to talk about not those commercial pages when we're talking about content marketing, and what are more long form pieces or creative pieces as opposed to sales oriented pieces. So
I completely agree with Ammon that a great landing page, converting landing page, can also be a great piece of content marketing, but often they're serving very different purposes.
Yeah, totally. And then Dan Shore was kind enough to put that out there for me. Thank you, Dan. Mark and I are looking forward to joining you in Worcester sometime soon at your local meetup group. And another one from Ammon right here. Done right, content marketing is impossible to measure. So half of my content marketing is aimed at conversation at the water cooler. I think that's a great mindset, personally.
And it's so frustrating because we've been so deeply trained as digital marketers to track and measure everything, right? That the beauty of digital was, hey, it's online, so we can track it. And and yet, weirdly, conversely to this maxim, some of the best marketing that I've ever seen for Moz and for many other companies has been wholly serendipitous, exactly as Ammon said.
There's that concept we talk about of dark social, some people call it, which sounds very mysterious or nefarious, but it actually just means the social that takes place in real life. It takes place offline or in places online that are not easy to see or have access to. And I think what Ammon just said about becoming the water cooler conversation, that could be and maybe should be one of our greatest goals. If the content that you're putting out there and what other people are saying about it and who's sharing it and all those factors together make you become that water cooler conversation that you'll never see, you may never know about, but which is generating that trust and authority out there in the real world that could eventually lead to sales for you, lead to connections.
I mean, this was Distilled's whole thing around vocal ranges at Concert Hotels, right? Is that the Emmys are coming up. People are going to be talking about singers at water coolers around the country and around the world, right? Now's the time, right? Now's the time to insert this brand, insert this into the conversation so that when someone says, well, Steven Tyler could never sing as high as James Brown, you're going to be like, oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, get some really interesting conversations going. But speaking of which, I'm going to introduce just a minor 1-minute diversion here. because I have a bone to pick with the entire digital marketing industry. Why is it every time we name something, it makes us seem like we're nefarious? I mean, like we're trying to manipulate or cheat something. We had dark social, right? I mean, come on, guys. It's like this just isn't helping us. All right, end rant.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that SEO especially, not all forms of digital marketing, but SEO especially, and a lot of the conversion rate optimization world, we all started in this hacks, tips, tricks kind of era, and I think that legacy has carried over, right? So
yes,
but it is frustrating, right? I mean, given what happened to the reputation of SEO for a dozen years, and which only in the last 3 or 4 years has my sense been that SEO's reputation has actually recovered some and is becoming more mainstream, more accepted, which is something I actually didn't predict. I would have predicted the opposite, that it would always be tarnished and that we'd have to move to something else. But that's, I think, a good lesson for us, that we should be cautious with our new naming conventions. Content marketing is a pretty good one, Eric.
Yes, you're right.
I wonder, if the content marketing movement, since when those things happen, it's going to be us, us who are in the digital marketing world, who are going to see it and jump on it first. And it can be a bandwagon thing. But I wonder how much, Rand, that had maybe some underlying positive influence for us. It awakened us that we've got to be adding more than just the next 3 tricks to get to rank on page 1, and began to value more the deep thinkers in our industry, the people that were going the extra level and adding real value for clients and customers. I'm sure it's a cart and horse kind of argument, but I wonder how much that has helped redeem us to some extent.
Interesting. I mean, I guess my hope is, if I were to go back in time, right, a decade, I'd jump onto Webmaster World and be like, no, wait, I have an idea. Maybe we shouldn't call it this.
Right. Yeah. No, we don't have to keep going down the rat hole. I know I introduced sort of a diversion, but the word dark social came out, and I went, oh. But anyway, how about one of the other points from your presentation? You want to bring another one out, Rand? Yeah,
absolutely. So one of the interesting points around getting to that bar of good enough content, an interesting piece for me has been observing over the last 10 years what content succeeds and works well. And I am addicted to sites and social accounts that promote this type of stuff, right? So I'm a daily Reddit reader. I'm a Constant Hacker news reader. I obviously founded inbound.org with Dharmesh from HubSpot, and many other sites like that, Metafilter and Slashdot, et cetera, et cetera. Back in the day, it was Dig. And the interesting thing about content pieces that do phenomenally well is that they often are not what any of us would call the best piece of content in that industry, or the best piece, the highest performing piece of content, or what we would expect to be something that would truly sail far and wide. Much of the time, what works is actually what I call content that resonates with a particular community. It's about getting the love and support and aligning your content's mission with a community's passion. If you can find people who have a reason to share your content and to want your content to spread, you're going to be far more successful than if you improve the quality of that content by 10, 20, 50%. And this is one of the things that a lot of content marketers, I think, forget. That they're like, hey, this is a really good blog post. And I say, and who are the people who are going to care so much about the mission of that content, of that blog post, that they are going to want to help it spread? Well, no, but it's really good. People want to share really good things. No, people don't want to share really good things. People want to share things that reinforce a belief of theirs, that challenge a convention, that make them look good to their peers, that help them to fit into a group, or help assign them a group, help show to their peers, hey, this is who I am. These are the motivations for sharing, not, well, gosh, that was quite an interesting read, and I have learned something. I shall retweet. That's not right. Only occasionally do people do that.
Yeah, it's totally true, and I know this is an area that for me is particularly challenging because I come from an academic family, right? I mean, my father taught physics at MIT for 30 plus years. Both of my brothers are, PhDs and teachers.
Eric, are you the black sheep? Not to use another,
I thought I was the successful one.
Oh.
So yeah,
he's definitely making more money than the rest of them. That's for sure.
But it's like, well, that's a wholly different conversation, and isn't necessarily true. But because professors really do get time, and they get to do lots of other projects, but we won't go down that whole conversation. But yeah, it's so to get into thinking about emotional triggers and what's going to cause people to respond, and I mean, that's a journey which I'm still on. And it's trying to learn more about that and think more about that and do a better job of that. And I agree with you; it's a really, really big deal.
When people ask me, I get this kind of question every time I'm interviewed. It feels like, which is, what is the skill that a great content marketer or SEO needs most? And my answer is always empathy. Empathy. If you are able to put yourself in the shoes of potential buyers, people who influence potential buyers, folks in the media, folks on, with big, powerful social accounts, journalists, if you can put yourself in their shoes and imagine their life, imagine the journalist walking into Wired and saying, God, guys, we need to come up with the story for the October issue. What's really hot right now? What can we write about? Which companies are changing the world? Who are we going to put on the cover this month? That kind of thing. And you can imagine what that process is like. You can be a much better marketer, a far better marketer than someone who says, well, I have tremendously good writing skills, and I know how to do a little bit of programming, and I can design some stuff, right? So I can make a fully interactive graphic that no one will care about because I cannot put myself in the shoes of other people and imagine what they want.
Rand, I cannot overemphasize the importance of what you're saying now, and I think it is the single most important thing that I've learned as a content producer is to pay attention to that. That when something, because I look back at the content that has seemed to resonate the most with people, that I'm really the most proud of now, is not necessarily my best piece of writing or the most intensive research, but it's where the content started because I knew there was this burning need out there, that something is happening in our world and that people want to understand it and they want to get to grips with it. The piece that I published for Moz yesterday on the changes in authorship was born out of that. It was like, Google does some huge change without any announcement, just like out of the blue, author photos are gone, and people are jumping out of buildings, and I hope not, but all kinds of wild things are out there in the air. And this is something that that I've studied, I know something about, so I figured I just had this burning need to say, let's take a look at this, let's go deep, and here's what might be happening. Those are the best pieces because that's coming out of a need that's not just my need, but I'm sensing the need of others out there that maybe I can help in this thing. So I think that's a huge lesson to learn.
Well, it's sort of core to the being and understanding and roots of SEO. We saw, SEOs saw people searching. We saw results that weren't giving people what they wanted or as much of what they wanted, and we thought, I can do that better. I can help those searchers better. And by doing so, of course, I can benefit myself or benefit my company or my client. But I think that going back to those roots and saying, what am I going to make that is a deep problem people have, and I can help solve it, and I can do it in such a way that they will emotionally connect with that content and want to share it.
So yeah, I'm going to expand upon this a little bit because I actually think empathy is a critical part of the picture, but it isn't all of it. All right, and I'm going to throw up another comment from Dan Schur, which doesn't actually reflect my modification to it, but he's also noting the role of creativity, but I'm going to actually phrase it a little bit differently, which is understanding where the other person is coming from is critical, but it's a separate skill that you also need, which is how to appeal to the emotion of that person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Because you could have one without the other. I can actually empathize with where you are, but not fail to create a content piece which triggers the emotion. Because it's this whole thing. It's like I talk about it all the time from a differentiation perspective, right? I'm constantly telling people, extreme differentiation is a phrase that I might use, or I constantly I laughed the other day when Google came out with their how-to things in the search results, and French toast was one of them, because I've been using French toast as an example of a broken search situation for, I don't know, 5 years. But my point in all this is that it's okay. Now I know what they need, but I have to be able to present my content in a way that, in the first visceral 2-second glance they have of the content, that they realize I'm addressing that need. Because if it takes 30 seconds to get in there and understand that you're addressing that need, right, you're going to fail, right? You have to, at that very, in the title tag or an image or somewhere in the very beginning, if you're really going to be successful, it's going to be, oh yeah, this is, boom, you have to have them in at that point.
Yeah. I think one tactical thing I was going to recommend, so I think we've been a little strategic here mostly, is for folks who might be watching and thinking like, okay, how do I see which pieces perform well, what kinds of things work? My favorite new tool for this is BuzzSumo, right? So BuzzSumo, I can go to it, I can type in, something completely random, beards or teeth or scotch or speakers, headphones, whatever, and I can see a list of the content that has performed the best on the social web, right? So they look at Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, and Google Plus shares, and then they'll total them up for you and show you all of the pieces of content that have been produced in the last, I think they've been tracking things for about a year, 6 months or a year, and then I can filter. I want to see only articles. I want to see only blog posts or guest posts even. I think you can look at interviews. You can look at videos. You can see things that, for example, they now have some advanced queries where I can see, hey, I want to see all of the things that Eric and Mark have both shared on Twitter. And there's a query that you can type to do that. And to me, this is a great way to get into that mindset of kind of creativity and execution on a task, and also having an idea of like, oh, that's what works. That's what resonated with this audience. And then you can get into the whys as you go down that list. So I think they're a great kind of content strategy and tactical planning tool.
Well, I mean, that's the great thing about the modern world, right? I mean, if you don't have the natural ability, and some people do have the natural ability to come up with these things, you can cheat and actually use a tool like BuzzSumo, and like you said, that's what works, and you can learn from it, and you can take a data-driven approach to the whole thing.
Actually, I think you've identified another myth right in that comment, Eric, which is there's some people who are naturally good at it. I would agree there's probably a spectrum, but when you look at the people who are exceptionally good at content marketing, many of us think that we're looking at talent, and we're actually looking at practice. Right? When I see people identify like, wow, what's a common one? Kissmetrics. People are like, man, that Kissmetrics blog, they just nailed it. They came out of the gate, a couple years ago and just have one of the best blogs on the web. Heaton and Neil must be insanely talented. Nope. Heaton and Neil must have been doing this for 10 years and been not very good for a long time, and then kind of good for a while, and then pretty good, and then what you see today.
Yeah, Eric, you're a great example of that. I know you like to say like those. I'm glad you qualified it today, because you used to say like those first 6 blog posts I wrote were the best I ever wrote, and nobody read them. And today you said they're the best I wrote at the time, or in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's true, because I go back and I look through all your old stuff, And as good as those posts were for the time and who you were then, your content today is so much better, so much higher quality, so much more readable. You're better at telling a narrative and leading us along. All those things, that if you looked at Eric Enge 6 years ago, a piece of content, you might have said, well, this was great information, good, but not very talented.
There's that talent word again.
Yeah.
But
I mean, go back and watch the first year of Whiteboard Friday. It's awful. It's unbelievable to me that anyone ever watched it at all and that it took off. And today people watch it and they go, wow, Rand's just a natural talent on video. Nothing can be further from the truth, right? But those years of investment, that's what made me good at it. I think that's what makes any of us good at it. And that's a really hard thing to sell, right? As an agency or a consultant or as an in-house marketer going to a boss or a team and saying, hey, we want to invest in content marketing. And the bad news is we're probably going to suck at it for about a year. But then we'll get kind of good, and 3 or 4 years from now we can really reap the benefit of this, but no, you probably won't be able to measure it. You know who says yes to that? Only those few outliers who recognize the power of serendipity and who recognize the power of investing in something that nobody else will invest in. That is another great superpower of content marketing, is that because so few people, especially in sectors where they say it's very hard, right? B2B manufacturing industry. I was actually talking to a guy who primarily serves mid-sized farms. Farmers at mid-sized farms, he makes software for them. And he was talking about their content marketing efforts and how they've invested and should they keep going, should they give it up, and fascinating, right? Incredibly tough audience to reach, but not impossible. In fact, Farmer's Almanac is basically one of the first pieces of content marketing, out there in the world, along with the Guinness Book of World Records. So it's not impossible, but very challenging. And I think those few folks who recognize, hey, this is powerful, but it'll take a long time, and I won't be able to perfectly measure it, and still make that investment. Those are the outliers who have tremendous success.
It's funny because this is why it fits people who've come out of SEO so well, because the classic SEO sales pitch is, hey, I'm going to do this SEO stuff for you. I actually don't know when you're going to get results. I don't know how much results you're going to get. I have no way of telling you that. I actually don't even know what I'm going to do yet until I start the work. 10,000 a month, sign here. That's the pitch right there.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's always been, right? So if you can sell that, you can probably sell some content marketing along the way.
True enough. At least you could measure, back in the day, right? You could at least measure the traffic that came from the keyword rankings you improved. Now that's much harder.
Yes, it is. So we're trying to merge the two disciplines. Yeah, so no, all of this is great. Have we gone through all of your points from the deck yet, or?
There was a couple other ones that we talked about. One of those big ones is mixing SEO and content marketing, right? So I think one of the big failures that unfortunately both sides have, right, is that a lot of folks in SEO still focus on, I'm going to, sort of clean up a website technically, do some link building and optimization, do keyword targeting, these classic kinds of things, and then, here you go. That's the SEO work. But a lot of that SEO work oftentimes doesn't do the things that great content marketing can do, which is brand building and brand recognition, which is attracting sort of an ongoing flywheel of incoming links and attention and awareness. And on the reverse of that is the content marketer who might be doing a great job, right? Maybe they've had a few years of experience. They're deeply empathetic to their customers, the influence of their customers. They're putting together those wonderful pieces of content that are resonating. But all the traffic they get to all of their content pieces comes in the first 6 to 24 hours. Once that period's over, it's gone. It's done forever unless some new social influencer finds it and picks it up again. Because a lot of the time a content marketer hits publish, shares it out, and then waits and hopes. This is the great part of SEO. There's more searches per day than there are people clicking on all the links on all the social sites, right? And there are more clicks resulting from those searches in multiples, right? We're talking about an order of magnitude difference between all the links people click on Facebook every day and the links that are clicked on from Google, right? More than 10x. And so the opportunity exists if you can merge content marketing and SEO to say, not only am I going to produce this content that's going to resonate, but I'm also going to do it in such a way that it has the opportunity to rank well for things that I know people are searching for or will search for across the web for months or years to come. And that means you get this nice spike, but then a long, beautiful tail of consistent, ongoing traffic. And sometimes that tail outlives and out-quantifies the head by a tremendous amount. And I've seen this many, many times where we've produced a piece of content, had a successful launch day, and then if you add up the next 100 days after that, where it's just getting the traffic from ongoing searches, they're another order of magnitude above that launch spike day. It's just remarkable.
It's a beautiful thing. So, but part of that, I mean, if you're thinking about it this way, remembering that it's probably not a high converting page, then you got to put some thought into what you want it to rank on.
Yeah.
That I was alluding to earlier, right? So, given that it's a reputation, the payoff really is reputation building and trust building.
You want that brand impression, right? You want that brand impression 7, 10, 15 times. For Moz, actually, I think we're a pretty good example of this. I believe it is 7.5 trackable visits, so meaning from the same device with the same cookie, on average before we see you take a free trial. So the average visitor to Moz visits 7.5 times before they ever take a free trial. You know what's even more fascinating? One of my favorite stats is the fewer times they visit before they take a free trial, the lower their customer lifetime value, right? The more likely they are to quit and not use our service for very long and not subscribe to our software for very long. It's the folks who visited 12, 15, 30 times before converting to a free trial, their lifetime value is through the roof. And so
probably by the time they visited 15 to 30 times, they're part of your community.
That's right.
They're not just random visitors anymore. They've been sucked in enough that they already have some level of affinity with Moz that can overcome a lot of other things. So if something goes wrong with your tool on a particular day, they're not going to say, "That's it, I'm done with them." And say like, "Hey, it's Moz. They're good people. I know they'll fix it. I know we'll get there. They're going to stick with you."
I have a brilliant marketing suggestion for you. On your sign-up form, you now need to put something that says, "Are you sure you want to sign up yet? Consider."
Make sure read some blog posts first. I'm just.
That's right.
You are not allowed to become a customer yet. You have not read enough blog posts.
We've had conversations that are almost literally along those lines, right? Where we're trying to nudge people to. We've been thinking about actually creating. There's like a 99, 149, and 249 package or whatever the price points are. And we've been thinking about having one that's completely free. That is just, learn more about SEO, right? Take these courses and we'll sort of walk you through this stuff and see if we can get more people biasing to go the free route before they upgrade and try that out. But this is actually something. This is not unique to Moz, right? So I've talked to many other companies who have very, very similar things. I was on the board of a company called Minted that had similar stuff, right? So they sold a lot of custom designed artwork and holiday photo cards and this sort of stuff. And they experienced the same thing, which is the people who were the most loyal, had the highest customer lifetime value, were the folks who came time and time again, even if they didn't make a purchase. And so content marketing then serves a different purpose. And content marketing plus SEO is now about, let me just be generous and empathetic. Let me just serve you as many times as well as best I can. And then whenever you're ready to discover that, hey, does that website that I love and keep visiting, do they actually sell anything? When you're ready for that, great. Then we want to convert you, but not necessarily before. And so the goal of Moz's marketing, right? In fact, the mission is help people do better marketing. And the goal of our content team in particular is to help marketers succeed, not sell our software, right? In fact, our marketing team is not focused on selling software. They're focused on helping marketers succeed. And it's our sort of belief, and a data-driven belief at this point, that, or at least a data-backed belief, that those two are actually in wonderful alignment. And so I think there's a lot of companies out there, when they invest in SEO and content marketing, they need to figure out some way to measure whether they're in that same boat, whether getting the brand impression, helping their audience, is going to be more important and provide them with better, higher customer lifetime value customers over the long run than building a funnel through my content.
Yeah, we're very much the same philosophy here. I mean, you've probably heard me say this before, Rand. We don't have salespeople here.
Yep.
The only way to become a customer is to call or email us, and yeah, you can find our information on the site, but it's kind of tucked over at the bottom of the right sidebar or in the footer, and that's just the way it is. And even we are getting to a point where I no longer process all the incoming. Well, that's been true for a number of months now, where I don't process the incoming calls anymore. I used to take all of them, and now we have we're going to have a biz dev person who's going to help with some of the stuff. But again, we're not doing outbound. I'm adamant we're not going to do outbound. It's like we're going to continue to try to stimulate the interest in reaching out to us.
And, Dan Shore here reinforced, Rand, what you were just saying a moment ago about marketing. We think marketing is just like driving that person to the sale. But what Dan is saying here, that the reason that he's remained a Moz customer and became one, or was so super positive about you, is he called customer support when he had a problem. They resolved my issue literally within 90 seconds. I mean, that kind of, when you've got to have the whole team around this and get that mindset in your company that everybody is part of marketing. It's part of your content. That's content. That's content marketing. Because look what has happened. That's a story that Dan just told in a public hangout that maybe a lot of people will see. Your customer support team did content marketing by meeting his need.
And here we go again, Gina Fidel. First touch point with Moz was the forum.
Yeah.
So, great stuff.
Yeah, I think this is, this really speaks to kind of that long-term investment. I don't know if this would have been the case, right? But if Dan and Gina had joined Moz, many years ago, they might not have had those phenomenal experiences. That I think it's over time, right, that we've kind of learned and upgraded those teams and bolstered them. For a long time, we didn't even have a customer service team, right? We were like, oh well, something's broken, someone will email us. I mean, oops. These are not lessons that we learned lightly, but certainly, a powerful one. And so back to the content marketing and SEO thing, Eric, you were talking about something that I think might be worthy of a couple minutes, which is the challenge of knowing what you want your content marketing content to rank for versus your more sales, more conversion funnel, more product or services focused pages, and having that clear distinction. I agree that that's something important to think about. It's been a big challenge for us, quite honestly. I think we've done actually a very poor job of separating those two, of getting our funnel pages to rank, and we've really just relied on people making their way from the content to the funnel. But for many companies, that's not an effective strategy, and they do need to think much more clearly about differentiating those two and getting the keyword targeting right.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is a complicated question. I mean, it's hard for me to project the right answer onto the thousands of different market spaces out there. From a Stone Temple point of view, I could imagine wanting the content to rank for problem-solving type. I have a problem to solve type phrases. which of course could lead to consulting, but if it's just a point problem, like how do I do X, then that might be useful. I know for years we always, and I think it's probably still true, we rank for phrases like person's name and then the word interview. That's good from a reputation building perspective. Someone, types Matt Cutts interview and we come up, then that's probably really good. That was never going to get us a conversion anyway, so that's a great thing to rank for, and for that reputation building purpose.
I think that the tough one becomes, let's say that I am Beard Brand, and they have a wonderful page, right, and a video and a whole process of how to apply mustache wax, which is not actually an entirely easy process. I'm not wearing any right now, but I do sometimes. And that page is going to be a unique and different URL than the one that is ranking for mustache wax, or the one that actually has their mustache wax products listed on it. You could potentially merge these two, but that might reduce the non-commerciality and shareability of the content piece. Or you could not target, mustache wax on that mustache wax page, but then, man, you're losing all that traffic. So this is a hard, complex problem, and I think somewhere where a very strategic point of view, SEO and architecture person need to sit down and make those determinations on a case-by-case basis, find the conflicts, identify resolutions, determine whether you're going to, hey, are we going to send people from the mustache wax video page over to here's our products, and can we do that in an authentic way that's not going to lose us shares and links and things that would help us rank? And then likewise, from our product page, do we lose conversions if we put the how-to video on there, or do we help ourselves by getting it in front of more people? And it's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, it is. It is a hard problem. I actually have a comment from Michael Ross I'm going to put up here. Yes, but Eric, isn't that a purist or top-of-the-mountain guru thought to say we have the luxury of customers finding us? Most of all of us need outbound and biz dev in a real world, etc. And
I answered that. I didn't see in the comments, and I'll just read. I'm interested in what you would to say, Eric, but I'm just going to read my answer here quickly. I said, Michael Ross, we didn't just get to speak at Moz, etc., by magic or because we have some special blessing. Everything we've been talking about today is the hard work that got us to that place. And if you go back over what Rand's been saying here all along, it's that none of us started there. It's that investing of the seeds, that planting of the seeds, that building of the content and the reputation and the authority, the trust of other people. It's going up ladders. Then you get to speak at a local meetup group, and then the next thing you know, you're speaking at a statewide conference, or you move up that ladder. But that's, I think, it's that investment that we're talking about.
But it does highlight something that's worth pointing out here, which is we have been talking through this entire show about a long, hard, slogging road. That might mean that content marketing isn't for everybody.
Absolutely.
And
in fact, it absolutely is not for everybody. It can't possibly be for everybody.
Right. Because if everybody was doing content marketing well, then I don't know what happens. Isn't that like the apocalypse or something?
No, but I mean, then we are seeing a little bit of that, which is particularly in our field, there are many people who are doing a better job of content marketing in the web marketing and SEO worlds today than what Moz was doing in 2004, 5, 6, and 7, right? And if the market was as saturated then as it is now, I don't believe our brand ever could have reached where it's gotten today. It was by being an early adopter and an early entrant into the tactic, right, or the process of content marketing that we managed to build up a brand and a reputation. So, to Michael's point, I think what's really interesting about that is now you have to say, well, if there's some saturation somewhere, how do I find the new thing or the next new thing or the underserved, untapped market? And maybe that's, for many people in many industries, content marketing is still dramatically underserved. No no one in the beard grooming world, with a couple exceptions, is doing great content marketing. Very, very few people in the B2B manufacturing world, almost no one, is doing great content marketing and building attention and awareness, right? And therefore, those markets are very untapped. But in a saturated field like ours, you need to think, what's the next piece? How do I become, how do I earn the attention of folks outside of that? And going back to old school business development, or even outbound sales, is a plenty legitimate method. It's not the method we're talking about today, but there are ways to be successful with that as well. So I don't want to give anyone the idea that content marketing is the only way, but it is a very powerful path, especially in unsaturated markets.
Right, and then so here's Ammon Johns asking me to lean close to the camera to show that I have two hands and two eyes. Oh wait, I gotta pop that out of there. There, see, and 2 hands and 2 eyes. But actually, to expand on your point a little bit, Ren, so saturated market, does that mean every single niche of that market is saturated? Probably not.
No way.
So if you are going to do content marketing and you are entering a saturated market, study it and figure out what parts of that are underserved and pick a little spot.
Yeah.
So
well, one of the examples, relevant examples to me, I was impressed the other day. I think someone tweeted, hey, so keywordtool.io just killed Ubersuggest, right? And I thought that was fascinating. It was basically a very saturated field, right, which is broad keyword research, like early stage keyword research tools and free keyword research tools, of which there have been hundreds and are now dozens of them. And many of us in the field have talked about and used for the last few years Ubersuggest as an add-on to AdWords. And here this keywordtool.io comes out, and we're all like, wow, that's just way better. That just works much better. I'm going to adopt that. I think, Mark, you yourself are an example of someone who recognized a very underserved niche, right? Google Plus was a very underserved niche because there was a lot of skepticism around it, a lot of like, is this even going to take off? Do we need this next social network? And you identified that and have benefited from it. And we've all benefited from your knowledge and expertise in that realm, right? But so finding those gaps is a great point, Eric.
Yeah, and that it's just like business of any kind. You take a risk. You see something you think is a need. You jump in. And that was a certain risk that I took because Google Plus certainly could have entirely flopped, and and I would have just had egg on my face, or not egg on my face. I just never would have had any reputation because it wasn't anything worth talking about. But at some point, you got to jump in the game and decide, like, this is where I stand. This is what I'm passionate about. I see something here that I don't think anybody else is seeing. And when you got that passion combined with the other things we talked about, the creativity, the ability to fashion it into a message, to learn to do that, as we said, over time, to watch the feedback, observe, what people resonate with, what is really helpful to them in the content that you produce. That's how you learn to become a craftsperson in this business.
Yeah, totally. So it looks like we've already hit the top of the hour here. It just totally flew by, but it's always great having you here, Rand. A total pleasure, and thanks so much for joining us. Did you want to add any closing comments for people before we wrap this up?
No. I think I think maybe we want to just keep those key things in mind, right? That content marketing is very different from funnel marketing, and oftentimes those aren't connected. That combining content marketing and SEO is a powerful way to make it an ongoing thing. That producing content that resonates with an audience and a community, rather than just is very good content, can often make for a much more powerful journey and a much more amplification of that content, and that you have to invest in this for a long time. That none of us were good when we started out, and that identifying an underserved niche, a gap, and then being willing to invest for a long time in unmeasurable ways can produce fantastic results. And you guys, I'm very excited to see you next week here in Seattle. It's supposed to be 90 degrees, but luckily we'll be in an air-conditioned conference hall for MozCon. So
yeah,
can't
my next 3 weeks: Seattle 90 degrees, Atlanta the week after that, back up to California. I mean,
we're low humidity. We're West Coast, no humidity, so it'll be nice.
good.
And I want to close with just quickly with this note from Michael Whipple, who was watching on YouTube. It notes that Rand has the same birthday as Nikola Tesla. That brings us full circle because your birthday is Nikola Tesla's birthday, and Eric drives a Tesla. So now we've come full circle.
Awesome. I'm glad you put that up, Mark. So got to mention the Tesla on every show. And yeah, so I think all great stuff. I'm just going to add one closing remark, which is that it's not for everybody. It's kind of what we covered at the end. Michael Ross's question was an excellent question, and
yes.
and it can be something that isn't appropriate for a given business. So of course, what we're trying to target here is that if you are prepared to make that commitment, knowing that you're not going to be able to measure it well, that you're going to suck at it for a while, it's going to take time, then it can be a fantastic way to build a business and a fantastic differentiator for you. So hopefully you've all found the show useful. Thanks so much for watching. That's it for the Digital Marketing Excellence Show for today. Thanks, everybody.